welcome to Transmute Yourself, where we talk about topics related to fear of commitment so that you can create your own fulfilling relationships. My name is Javier Peñalba, and today we're talking about anger management and commitment phobia. So, what were my tendencies in the past, right, with regard to anger management and relationships? It was pretty much that at the beginning of a relationship, I would try not to express myself whenever anything bothered me. That was pretty much my tendency for the first couple of days, weeks, or even months. So I would look the other way whenever anything made me unhappy. I would not set really any boundaries, and I would many times I would simply not express myself, right? So let me just give you an example. I remember back home in my early 20s, right, when with one of my girlfriends at the beginning, she would just show up in front of my door without telling me in advice. So without any message or anything, she thought it was cool, like a surprise, but I hated it because it would disrupt my schedule. Maybe I wanted to study at that time, or I wanted to watch a movie on my own, and I couldn't because she was coming right at a moment in which I was not expecting. But I wouldn't say anything because I didn't want to be disliked, and I wanted to avoid any conflict. I think that's pretty normal in almost every relationship in the beginning stages. Being normal doesn't mean that it's necessary or that it's great, but that's normal. I want to say that. And that was pretty much my tendency, right? But then after the relationship built up a little bit and developed, what would happen is that this anger would also build up, this discomfort anytime that would happen. And then from one day to another, I would just blow up, right? And say, like, why do you always come without telling me? Or I hate it when you do that, you know? But it was not necessary to get into that stage of me getting that angry. And especially, it was not necessarily fair for the other person because she had no idea that I was angry because I was swallowing that anger all along. Now, this is just one way in which I would express my anger. In other situations, if I felt, let's say, that my boundaries were being violated, or if I felt criticized or judged or misunderstood, these type of things are the ones that bothered me the most. Another strategy that I would use, maybe sometimes in order to avoid being explosive, would be to not say anything, to wall in and withdraw completely. And that would sometimes even hurt the relationship more than having a frontal confrontation. You know, that's another strategy that I would use. Or in some situations, I would distract myself, do other things, avoid talking about it, or act as if I wasn't angry. So these are the things that I would normally do. Of course, after some time, this would build up so much that I would start getting triggered so easily that it didn't really make the relationship that stable, long lasting. Now, this everything that I'm telling you, based on what I've researched and also what I've talked with other people that have had or have fear of commitment, this is pretty normal. All of the things that I'm saying, and the main reasons, if we go a little back, a little bit into the past, as we're growing up, kids that grow up into adults having fear of commitment usually are not taught or simply do not learn how to manage anger in an appropriate way. What happens is that maybe in their household it is discouraged to be too emotional, or if you show anger back then, maybe you would get in real trouble with your parents, or maybe they would take it so personally and so seriously if you got angry that they would get super sad or depressed. So in order to avoid all of this, these kids, they learn to repress or to hide that anger and not to show it in any way, right? Also, it can be as a way to be liked by the parents because they are loved and they're liked when they're being nice and when they're being calm, but not that much when they're being angry, right? So if they want to be loved, they better behave and they better not show that anger in any anyway. So they can take this tendency and these trends as they grow up, but as it builds up, right? It can be that it damages the relationships because they blow up too easily or because they disconnect that much too much. And this is again, these are just coping strategies, right? Things that as you were a kid, you learned in a way, uh, how to handle that in such a way that may not solve the issue from its root. And then as you grow up, you do the things, like I'm saying, like hiding or withdrawing or fighting back when it's not that necessary. And I think one of the first steps that you can take in order to manage this, and this is very general, is to make that cut, right? And to ask yourself, what's the difference between the situation when I was a kid? Maybe it made total sense to stay quiet and not to show that anger, even if you were feeling it, because maybe it made sense, not to get in trouble with your parents, and it's fine, right? But now you're an adult. And is it really that your relationship or your partner has that much control over you that you can still not show that anger, or that you cannot express it in maybe healthy ways? And that's when you start making that difference. That's really when change happens. When you realize that you're not that kid anymore. And then that wise adult takes over, and things start really happening and developing in different ways, and you start building different emotional and mental habits, as we will be talking right now. So the main, I would say, strategy to manage anger, especially if you've had fear of commitment, as with everything related to fear of commitment or with other issues, is self-understanding, self-knowledge. So really understanding, when do you feel angry? What is it really? What are those situations that make you angry? Is it when you feel criticized, or when your schedule is not respected and you don't feel respected yourself, or when you feel judged, or when you feel that your boundaries are being violated? Those are the type of things that could be that in the past they happened as a kid and then they keep happening as an adult. And you have to understand yourself and really pinpoint, have a very clear list of those things that really bother you. Then you have to understand how you feel when that happens. Where does it feel? So you start recognizing those emotions in your body, so that when they happen again, they don't catch you by surprise, right? But you know, all right, this is what's happening right now, and this awareness is very, very important. Then it's important to understand, how are you expressing it right now? Are you running away? Are you withdrawing? Are you simply escaping by distracting yourself? Or are you fighting back too harshly, maybe, and unnecessarily? You can check these strategies that you're using, right? And then maybe devise other strategies. How else can you express that anger? How else can you satisfy those needs that are maybe not being met, like your boundaries being violated, or any other thing, right? So how else can you do it? This is again a very general strategy. I will give you something a little bit more specific, especially considering that when you have a situation that's making you very angry, this anger, when you're immersed in it, it can be so big, right? It can be so dominating that you won't be thinking about these things, probably, like, what is it really that's making me angry? Or sometimes it's hard, right? And we need something that helps us to get into that stage in which we can see things clearly. The main reason for this is that anger, I consider it's one of those emotions that can act the most as a drug, or as some type of something that narrows down your view so much that you can only see the thing or the person that's bothering you, and you do not see anything else, any solution. You don't care about that. You don't care about anything that can make you feel good at that moment, because that's just too big, right? So it's important to have some type of coping strategy. And I want to give you two cases here, right? One of the cases is when this is too big and you cannot manage it, right? So let's say, for example, that you have a plan to go somewhere, and then your girlfriend suddenly cancels and says like, "No, I'm gonna have a call with a friend." Maybe she's in front of you, right? And you would naturally fight back, or you would simply disconnect and not talk to her for hours. Let's say that you would fight back and you would say things that could hurt her, right? So this is like an emergency strategy, what I will give you, and it is, first, you need to have a little bit of awareness of yourself and how you're feeling, even if just a little bit, within that anger. And you can just feel and anchor yourself to your breath, a little bit at least, and feel that anger. And before you blow up, if you have a little bit of this self-awareness, you can ask for a timeout, and that's totally fine, especially in the process of managing anger. You can simply say like, let's talk about this in a couple minutes or later. I need some time out. All right, and you go. What I recommend at that point is to take, if you find, let's say, a space for yourself, your room, your office, whatever it is, where you can just simply sit by yourself and have some privacy, is to take 10 deep breaths. Breathe in, right, and very deeply, and breathe out 10 times. And then you can, as you're doing that, you can feel where you feel that anger. Is it in your chest? It's usually a pain, like a heat in the stomach and some pressure, maybe also in the chest. So you can just feel that as you're breathing in and out 10 times. That's the first time. You will feel how your anger goes from 10 to maybe 4, 3, 4, and that's a little bit more manageable, right? So after that, and it's important to not focus that much or at all on your thoughts as you're doing that. Just observe them, but focus more on your body. That's the first step, right? Then I recommend something that I've used in the past that has helped me a lot, especially or even if I'm super angry. And it is to do a little bit of a visioning meditation. And it is to see yourself somewhere in a nice place like the forest, or it can be the beach. You can sit down there with your eyes closed, right, as you're breathing. You can see yourself there, and you can see your partner, your trigger, right, in front of you. And just imagine it's a nice place, right? And you can also have a third person, which can be a mentor. This mentor can be someone that you admire, someone that represents wisdom for you. If you're a religious person, it can be Jesus Christ, it can be Buddha. If you're not so much into that, it can be someone that you admire, like Nelson Mandela or Gandhi, or maybe an uncle or a cousin or a friend, someone that you really trust and admire. And then those three persons are there, right? You first let your mentor ask you what's going on, right? Just vent it out, what's really happening, how you're feeling, and simply allow yourself to express everything in your head. Just let it all out as you're saying that to the other person. Then let your mentor ask the other person, okay, how do you feel about that, and what's really your point of view? So that is creating a little bit of compassion already. By listening to the other side, that's already creating some type of conversation within you. You can take it even a step deeper, and I would say it is to put yourself in the shoes of your partner at that point, if you can do that. If you can just leave your body for a moment and see what's really going on in her world through her eyes, in her shoes. You can have a couple of rounds of this. It can be 1, 2. Sometimes with one round is enough for you to feel, wow, like this really helped. That's happened to me. Like in 5 minutes, I felt my anger go from 10 to maybe 2 just doing this one time. But you can do it 2, 3 times if you need a little bit more of that. then you can just let your mentor give you some advice, give you and your partner some advice. Maybe the advice will be go and talk to her, ask her why she did that, or ask her what's going on, you know. Anything that can um, come from this third person, I think is important because it's your own wisdom that's seeing things from another perspective, and that's very, very important. Then you just leave the room and then you do whatever it is. You might realize at times that you don't really need to talk about it. You can simply say like, sorry, I was just dealing with something, but I'm fine and I don't even need to talk about it. Or maybe you do need to talk about it. You listen to your gut feeling and try to understand and use your logic as well, like what's really going on before before you do anything, right? Before you take a conscious choice, make sure that it's a conscious choice. Now, this is my recommendation again in an emergency situation. The other situation is when you cannot escape, right? You cannot go to a private place, and or maybe that you already feel a little bit more comfortable with your anger and you don't need to do that, right? So what can happen at that point is I always recommend to have that anchor on your breath when you're getting angry. So you can feel that anger rising up, but you can also anchor or ground yourself to that breath. And that way you will have part of your awareness within you, within that life force, within your spirit and yourself, and the other part in the situation. But you won't take the situation as personally if you have that grounding mechanism that you can always practice. You can practice that 24/7 if you want to, having a little bit of your awareness on your breath. And then if you do have that awareness, you will see how you can cope with the situation in a different way. Now, important is again to note when that little inner child wants to take over the situation, wants to disconnect, wants to yell, wants to hide, run. And if you can be grounded through your breath, you can try to take him by the hand. You can do that. Take him by the hand in your head, and then just say like, I, the adult, will take over, right? And then ask yourself, what would an adult, a mature, wise adult that I am, do at this point? Of course, every time that something happens that triggers you is an opportunity for you to learn more about yourself, so that next time it will be a lot easier. And if you reacted in a way that was a little harsh or aggressive, or you again disconnected, it's fine. It's a process, right? We can fall at times and we can just stand up and learn from it. But make sure that you at least attempt to learn from it, so that next time it will be most probably different. So that's my advice for anger management and fear of commitment. All in all, know yourself better. Ground yourself as much as you can. If you need some time, ask for it. Some time off, just ask for it. It's fine. And make that cut, make that difference between your situation as you were a kid and today. And you will see how by doing this more and more, you will just become pretty much a more calm person. Even you will seem wiser and more grounded. And that's pretty nice, I would say, because then most situations won't bother you that much. And if they do, you will know how to handle them. All right. This has been today's live event. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, I will check right now in the comments, and I will see you very, very soon. Thanks a lot.